couldn't grow a beard to save my life, let alone any bloody chest hair. What are you talking about?
Other than now you're in America, maybe that's where you're hiding your beaver.
I'm Pete Techman Coman, and welcome to another super exciting episode of the Tech Effect. And why is this episode more exciting than the last episode? Well, I will let my good friend, my co-host, Mr. Mark, the Bearded Tech, tell us why.
G'day, Pete.
G'day, Mark.
How are you, mate? How's life in NYC?
NYC, it's coming to life. It's spring. Spring has sprung. We are enjoying warmer weather. I have just signed up. I'm playing softball in Central Park on the weekends, and life is great.
You do have a pretty good life, don't you? Hey, I follow you on Facebook on the weekends, and life ain't all that bad over there.
Just got to make the most of it, right?
Yeah. Why not? It's like that ain't living, Barry. Sort of BCF. You should do the BCF ads in
BCF
in New York.
They wouldn't understand it over here if they played a BCF commercial. They have no idea what's going on.
This is living, Barry. Good to go.
Exactly.
Hey, Pete, we have got an exciting show, and I'm very, very proud to introduce a fellow we have both known for quite a long time. He's a industry legend, been around for, I don't know, since Noah had the Ark. He doesn't show it though. He still looks 40-something.
Ageless.
Yeah. Aging gracefully. Mr. The man himself, Michael Broadbent, Managing Director of Midwich Australia and APAC, if I'm right. Michael, how are you, mate?
Well, after that, what can I say? Legend.
Probably not much.
Ageless. So I have been around for 30 years in this industry, believe it or not.
You wouldn't know.
It's been a crazy ride.
Yeah, you must have started when you were about 10 then, by the sound of it. We sort of worked out that.
I was actually 11 at the time.
11-y something.
You may
pushing 60 these days. Pushing 60.
I mean, I'm so honoured that we have Michael on the show. I even got dressed up a little bit today, right? I have got the collared shirt on rather than the Techman T-shirt. So, because it's a very important episode.
I noticed you've even got some hair coming out your chest, on your chest there, Pete. It's going. That's why I do my button up to here, right? It's like, poof.
I couldn't grow a beard to save my life, let alone any bloody chest hair. What are you talking about?
Other than now you're in America, maybe that's where you're hiding your beaver.
Well, there you go. That's a great start to the show. Oh dear. All right. Well, look, Michael, we've got you on because we want to just have a chat about a lot of things. We'll probably go to all places that we don't even know or haven't discussed. But anyway, we'll go. We want to talk about like the state of the industry. How Midwich has sort of repositioned or how they've sort of dealt with, I suppose, COVID in the last 12 months. Live events, distribution agreements. Like, you guys have had so much going on in the last 12 months, yeah?
Yeah, I don't think the effect of COVID has actually slowed us down. It certainly has affected our business like everybody else. It's affected our staff, but it hasn't affected our desire to still grow and to strengthen our core AV distribution business. For those that aren't aware, Midwich is actually a UK-based business.
That's what I was going to ask you. I mean, like, what's for those that don't know about Midwich, like, where did Midwich originate from? How did Midwich, sort of land in Australia, and what other parts of the world does Midwich serve?
Okay, so Midwich originally started in '89 in the UK as a distributor for laptops and printers.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. And then Then around mid-1990s, late 1990s, started doing more commercial AV. And then Stephen Femby, who's our Group MD, joined in 2003, 2004 as our finance manager. And then he's ex-Deloitte's mergers and acquisitions. So he's an M&A guy. Took over as a major shareholder and MD and started acquiring businesses in the commercial AV business.
Right.
So the original was in France and in Germany. And then he met Jerry Wilkins from IDT.
Oh yeah.
At a trade show in the UK. I think it was might have been the US actually. Anyway, Jerry, and then became interested in the Australian market. Obviously, they acquired Jerry's IDT business and become Midwich in 2014. And since then, they've acquired upwards of 18 or 20 businesses.
Wow.
And been quite strategic in gaps or both.
Is that around the world or?
Both in technology and geographical. So we now have a major presence in UK, Ireland, continental Europe. We acquired a new business in UAE earlier this year called NHK. So that gives us a presence there. We acquired a business in North America last year called Starin. And there's still some acquisitions going on. And we opened an office in Singapore year before last in 19, sorry. So now we do actually have a true global presence. Most of them still branded as their own, but all part of the Midwich Group.
Gotcha. And so Midwich is a distributor of like some major brands. So what are some of the brands you guys distribute? And does that change around the world? Like, do you have different agreements, say in the UK with certain brands versus Australia and Singapore versus the US, or do you do like a global agreement?
So yes and yes.
Okay.
is the answer. We are focused on the commercial AV market. And we think we're a leading, because we're focused and that's our core, we think we do it better in terms of branding, in terms of value-added services. All the businesses we acquire are typically geographical expansion that are in either commercial video, commercial audio, rental, LED, staging, but all still part of that core AV business.
Gotcha.
It does change all over the globe. I think we represent around 400 vendors now across the Midwich Group, which last year had revenues of about £700 million. So pretty close to 1.3, 1.4 billion Australian from our language. But we typically do have similar well-known global brands like Samsung or LG, NEC, Epson across most of the group. And since we acquired Starin in Northern America, we've actually developed a group vendor body now, or a group body that actually looks at what we can do across the group. And that's things like Zoom. We're doing a hardware as a service offering now for finance. We'll probably talk about that more later. My Support. And we're trying to do deals like with D10 or with other brands that are actually group-wide, not just geographic.
Yeah, well, so where does that put you as far as commercial AV distributors worldwide? You'd have to be up there as the biggest, wouldn't you?
I think we're the best. I don't think we've ever strived.
You're paid to say that, though. Yeah?
No, seriously, I don't think we've ever strived to be the biggest in revenue, because we come across, we do come across the bigger guys, the Ingrams and those guys, and a lot of our people that we compete with are indirect competitors because they go direct. Crestron is a classic example. So they go direct, but they're not a direct competitor because of distribution, but they directly compete against our brands. And they're, I don't know their revenues, but I think we strive to be the best in terms of brands, staff, and customer experience. We don't always get it right, but that's our strive. We don't actually measure it by dollars. We're trying to measure it by retention.
Yeah. I look, and so that's a great, certainly a great attitude to be leading with. That's for sure. I mean, nobody ever gets it right. We're people, but ultimately, but yeah, we're all trying to strive to get better. I hope.
Yep.
Some aren't. Some should be kicked to the curb. But you know, but yeah, certainly that's a
Not
good
these
one.
days, Mark. Not these days.
No.
Depends which country you're in, Michael. I mean, like over
It's
here,
true.
there's no. I mean, as a business owner in Australia, you know, if someone does the wrong thing, you got to give 3 warnings. You got to do this. You got to do that. And it's but over here, it's completely different. It's just like, all right, see you later, kind of thing. So it's
Is it that easy, Pete?
Contrast. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly weighted in the employer section, isn't it?
And that may vary from state to state, but that's what it's like here in New York.
Yeah. Right. But you're still there, so you must be doing something right.
People are critical, and as people that know me know, my philosophy is that people buy from people. Companies don't buy from companies. So the people factor is very critical.
Yeah.
But sometimes where it goes wrong, it's not necessarily the people. It's the training they've had.
Yeah.
It's the environment they're working in. It's the brands they've had. So there's a lot of different things to get that balance.
Yeah, people want to work with people they like and people they trust. And if I think if you can develop that relationship, then the sales just flow from there. Like if that's your job to sell, but you've got to have that relationship. You can't be knocking on doors and expecting people just to buy because you have a certain product that you want to sell. I mean, what's the value add that you have there? I mean, how do you support that customer? Yeah. Are you available? I mean, is that support from pricing point of view or availability or whatever it may be? But it's developing that relationship and that trust, which is very important.
Yeah. So I don't know how far you want to take this, but I personally use a process called the balanced scorecard. And it actually turns that whole shareholder value thing upside down.
Yeah.
Rather than let's deliver for the shareholders to give them value, returns, dividends, make profit, it actually turns upside down and says, okay, if you have the right people capital, the right working capital, the right processes, the right go-to-market, you will get sales, you will get strength in the market, you will get profitability, and that will take care of the shareholders.
Take care of itself.
Yeah.
And that's the balanced scorecard.
So before you mentioned some of the brands that you deal with, one of them was D10. Now, obviously, do you distribute D10 in Australia, or is that in other regions?
We do, but it's a global deal.
A global deal. But
it's a global deal.
Right.
My point is that for those that don't know, D10 is a all-in-one. I mean, think of Microsoft Surface, Surface Hubs, think of Cisco WebEx boards. It's like the equivalent to that for Zoom, right? It's a Zoom display. It's got a built-in camera, speaker, microphone. It's an all-in-one device. And I saw it a couple of years ago. I think it was Infocom, and it looked great. Like it was really, really cool. Great idea, great concept. With what's happened in the last 12 months, how has it changed your business in Australia? Like, are you seeing more UCC devices being sold compared to maybe sort of more pro AV video, AV components? Like what has it shifted just because of what's happened?
Ooh, we only got 50 minutes, haven't we? Yes, it has. Keeping in mind too that we acquired a business called Vantage in Australia February last year, so a month before COVID really hit its straps. Mm-hmm. Because we did say we had a global strategy around UC, because we do see UC as part of the commercial AV business, whether it's a huddle room, whether it's a boardroom, whether it's a D10 ME desktop. So yeah, UC is certainly part of our business. Yeah. The hardware side has become a more important part of our business in the last 12 months, accelerated because of COVID, no doubt about it. Yeah. You see the numbers coming out of Zoom in terms of licensing, not necessarily paid for, but certainly licensing. You look at the acceleration of Teams. You look at what the others are doing, like the PECs of this world. So on the other side of that is that we obviously acquired Vantage because of some of their services and some of their UC knowledge, and they were delivering limited or services to their customer base but couldn't scale because they were competing against all our partners.
Right.
So we acquired them, and then we wanted to scale and make all their services available to all our partners. That was the intention. Yep. But some of their customers, and we talk about BlueScope or KPMG of this world, or any of the big accounting or legal firms or defence, they were providing concierge and secured services to their boardrooms and to their meeting spaces.
Right.
That stopped because everyone started working from home. Yep. So for every action, there was probably a counter action on the negative. So there was no need for concierge. There was no massive events being being connected. There was no multi-people boardrooms connecting to multi-people boardrooms doing an AGM. So all that stopped. And obviously, some of the service we had was an interop service, where you could take a Skype call and hook up to a Teams call and hook up to a Zoom call. Well, now everyone accelerated their transition from a 2-year plan to a 2-month plan. So yes, it's changed a lot. But there's been a lot of changes very quickly. And there's been some technology changes, but fundamentally, the use of AV, I think, has actually accelerated. And I think you feel to say it hadn't. But it has accelerated, not necessarily for the benefit of us, because we sell commercial. So all that work from home stuff, it was bought from your Harvey Normans or your JD Hi-Fi's or whatever.
Your Logitech sort of stuff.
Amazon.
And they're using Zoom home licensing and all that sort of, all that sort of equipment. What it has done for us is it's certainly made us rethink things like our ability to provide a room solution, which we're very proud of. Everything in this room is us, but contactless. So how do I grab my device that I'm happy with and I know is COVID safe and walk into a room and get the room going? I don't want to touch the wall panel anymore. I don't want to touch the light switch. So that's been certainly something we've seen.
Well, that's one of Pete's babies. Touch less.
Yeah, I was going to say, one thing that I talk about a lot when I'm sort of doing presentations and talking to clients is creating touchless environments and touchless environments. So, so when I say touchless, maybe a one-touch meeting join, for example. So we're trying to reduce the number of touches, or like you mentioned, Michael, is how do I control the space from my personal device that I feel comfortable touching all the time? But I mean, one thing that I think that we'll start to see rolled out as a result of what's happened in the last 12 months, and for the reasons that you just pointed out, is voice control. Are you seeing anything, or is Midwich doing anything, or do you have any products that support that, or are you talking to manufacturers about voice control within a space? You got any thoughts on that?
Certainly, it was a discussion, and it got a little bit trendy for a while. We're not seeing a lot of it in the corporate or the education environment. I think students use a lot of it. But in terms of what we're delivering or what some of our partners are delivering, I think it's there and it's been developed, but I don't we talked, we're probably going to talk a little bit about AV over IP, similar to that, because I think a lot of stuff in the last 12 months has been put on hold for various reasons, whether it's contactless, whether it's a hybrid, whether it's a work from home, whatever it might be. But we're not seeing a massive uptake in what we thought was going to happen. In terms of AV over IP, in terms of voice control, there's been sort of a bit of a halt. There's been a lot of work in digital signage because retail went nuts. There's a lot of talk around autonomy with cars, autonomous cars, because people are buying cars. People aren't travelling, so they're spending money on property, and we've seen that with property booms. And guys doing home automation are still doing quite well. Guys that are doing home theatre are doing quite well. But are they using voice activation to do that? I think they are maybe through a Google Assistant or through some sort of client, but we're not seeing it.
Okay.
So if we double back to your Vantage acquisition for a second. So you said that all that sort of corporate support had really dropped off, but you've actually developed that on and reacted to that as well, haven't you?
Yeah, so we took the lead from our UK counterparts who developed a thing called My Support, which is obviously Midwich support, and as a value add. So the original one was an extended warranty. So when you buy a Bright Sign, you get 12 months warranty, but it's going to be in place for 5 years. Normally the customer says, I want to just plug and play and forget about it. So they buy an additional 4 years. Same with the Dexterity, same with the Samsung, whatever. So then we took that with the acquisition of our European, with the acquisitions here, with Vantage, with the help desk, and with our Starin acquisition, we've actually now developed a Midwich or My Support help desk, which is true follow the sun, because we have people in America that take over the ticketing system, then to us who take over the ticketing system, but then we hand over at night time from here to the UK. So we actually have a full 24-hour follow the sun help desk. And that now we've actually taken further to that, where we're now developing a proactive monitoring product, which is vendor agnostic, and which any of our partners can buy and sell per IP address or per IP device. And there's a fair few conversations and proof of concepts going around, because people are now more remote. So they actually now remote management is even more critical.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's certainly come up on our radar a lot more as an integrator. We're doing, okay, how do we do this remotely? Because we don't know if, we just don't know if we're going to be able to get across the border. And if we do, well, we don't know if we're going to be able to get back, like the reactions that quick. So what does that My Support mean for us as integrators? Like, we can resell that as a program?
Yeah, we don't sell direct. Everything we do is through the channel. So it's in a price book. So it's on.
So you're selling effectively. You're selling an SLA.
Yes, we are. We're backing you up as an SLA, correct? With a margin built in for the integrators. So we've done the investment. We've spent the hundreds of thousands of dollars to get it all going and the development and all the licensing. And then you can, I think it's 39 cents or whatever it is per device. You can buy it for 30. Don't quote me on that, but that sort of thing. And then we take the SLA, and the key part is we've called it My Support, which is MI Support, which doesn't tie to Midwich. Yeah. It can be anybody's My Support.
So effectively, you've white labelled it to some degree that we can.
That's exactly what we want people to do.
Yeah,
we're happy to. We'll answer everything My Support and do it with My Support, but you can white label it, you can rebrand it, you can do whatever you like with it.
You mentioned that you charge per device. Is that how it works? The pricing structure?
Don't quote me, Pete, but I think that's how it is. Yes.
Okay, but just out of curiosity, I mean, and is it a set price per device, or does it alter? Does it vary depending on the type of device? Like, because I'm thinking that some devices are a lot more complex than others, and might need more support for some.
So we're only doing proactive monitoring. We're not actually doing the break fix. That's still up to the integrator to do that.
Okay.
All right. So we're giving them an option to be proactive.
Yes.
And to get monthly reports or alerts and alarms when something is not right. Gotcha. So we don't do Crestron, we don't do AMX, we don't do Extron, but we can monitor an Extron, an AMX, or a Crestron device on behalf of the integrator. Something goes wrong, we trigger and tell them, and try and do level 1 triage. And then if they need to, then they do level 2, level 3 break fix. We can manage some of that, but we don't. That's not what the proactive monitoring device or service is about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it gives us the opportunity as an integrator to potentially bring it to light with the client before the client even knows about it.
Yeah, and also the reporting back to the client monthly, which a lot of clients like to see, particularly universities and corporates of room use. Who's booking the room and not using it, what technology is being used, what technology is effective. So all that sort of stuff is also part of the reporting.
So does that require any hardware, any additional hardware to do the monitoring, or do you require all those devices to be on a network so you can see that remotely? How does that kind of
that's
topology
totally
work?
dependent on the site and on what's going on.
Yeah.
Typically, if the SI or the end user doesn't want us on the network, we'll have a little standalone server which we talk to, and the net talks to their devices.
Gotcha.
Yeah, whether that's a NUC, whether it's a service, whatever that might be.
Yeah.
But that's really dependent on the IT requirements or the IT security and the protocols of the site.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's and that's the battle, I guess, isn't it? That's certainly in a corporate environment. And education for us, it's probably not. Most of them, you just go, I need a path out, and they'll just go, yep, we'll just give you a tunnel and off you go, sort of thing. So, but maybe in the corporate, it's a bit more secured.
Yeah, it is, and obviously part of our help desk and part of our services is that the advantage, because they were doing work for government defence, is IRAP certified. So we do actually have that full security certification as well, which is another value-added service that the typical SI or the typical reseller can't do or doesn't have.
Yeah, but can sell that and bundle it in as their own top scenario.
Yeah, think of it as a panel, as another product. Some people like Samsung and LG come to us. Some don't, so they don't come to us. So it's a service we're offering, and we've tried to productize it so that the channel can resell it.
Yep.
But I don't think I think in the past companies or organisations haven't invested or put enough time and effort into working out how to put these kinds of devices onto their network. I think they've taken the easy option and gone, oh, just segregate it, right? And they've had a separate network, like an air gap network for AV and for their IT stuff. We're just wrapping up a project here in New York where it is a totally converged network. Every device that requires a IP connection is on the client's network. They supply all the switches. It's on the same cabling infrastructure. It can be done, right? And this is a bank. So it is, like it'd probably be the last vertical that you would try to create a converged network on or with, being a financial institution. So that's what I'm saying. I believe it is a myth. I think there are a lot of manufacturers, AV manufacturers, that need to improve their product in the sense so it can be more readily allowed on a network from a security point of view. I think there are many large companies out there that have old operating systems that are not supported anymore, right? And quite often that information is not publicized at all. It's hard to actually find out what is that operating system that's running on that display or that touch panel or whatever it may be. But it can be done. It can be done. Yeah. I'm just surprised that not more companies have done that, because you think about it, people think, all right, well, we'll have all these air gaps on the network. We'll have all these separate networks for all these devices. But that actually, in my opinion, is riskier, because they still need some form of internet connection. So they still somehow connect to the client's network at some point. And those networks are typically less secure. If you put everything on the client's network, that is totally secure. Everything's monitored. They can see what's going on with every device. And sometimes there are rogue devices, and we find out pretty quickly about that and, get them off the network. But yeah, it's just interesting. As I said, hopefully, like with this project that we're doing, it's we can prove to others that it is actually possible. And
I think that does happen here as well.
Yeah.
Not so sure about other parts of Southeast Asia, because there's not, some of the standards and protocols are different to here.
Yeah.
Most of our vendors these days, when we ask the question about security or IT management, have the checklist in place and have the protocols in place to put any concerns at risk away. The problem I see is that the IT fraternity still, it's a risk management issue more than a hardware or a network issue. Their challenge is to be conservative in their risk management. And we see, we see and hear all the time about the GDPR in the UK, the rights protection. And if you get caught, or if you cause a break, or if you're part of the problem where there's a hack, the fines personally and from a company point of view are massive.
Yeah.
So I think half the issue, or some of the issue, is also risk management and risk mitigation, as opposed to the hardware can't do it.
But
I think there's also a part of this, though, Pete, is that the product, the vendor might make the product that's certainly well IP enabled and secure and everything else. There's a skills shortage come in the AV world as well of the ability to communicate properly to the IT departments, to put them at ease, say it is, how to say it is safe, and potentially there's also a documentation shortage from the vendor as well. I mean, they might have all the great support, but if they're not documenting the IT part of that in their manuals, or there's an IT white paper or something like that, it falls down there as well.
Sure, but that's I see that as being our role as consultants, where we are the ones that are finding that information out up front. And so what products are better? I mean, we've found out on this project, some products we've put on the network and they've just done some really, really weird, funky things that just don't fly in IT world, right? But you soon find those things out. So, but what happens is that I agree that there is, I think, a skill shortage in the AV industry as far as IT knowledge goes. But the thing is that the kind of knowledge that they may require, they're never really exposed to it, because those secrets are with the client. How that network is structured is with the client, that the network architecture. But once again, that's where we get involved and we help design that network infrastructure and architecture, and select the products that are going to work best for that client's needs. But you're right. I mean, we have to do a lot of digging. I mean, I contacted, Extron the other week about an operating system that they have on their touch panels, and I got to know a couple of people there, and he said that's the first time anyone's ever asked me that. Right? He said, we don't document it. We don't do it. We have no reason to document it. We don't want people to know what it is from a security point of view. But it is difficult. It is difficult. And sometimes it's through trial and error that you find that information out.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, for sure. I've lost my train of thought.
Okay, you've lost your train of thought.
You're never short of words,
shift
Pete.
gears a little bit here, right? So
I know where I was going. It's come back to me now. But you start talking, because you don't ever stop. So let's go.
Exactly.
There.
Michael, what's your thoughts on in-person events? So in Australia, we've got Integrate. Europe has got ISE. In the US, it's got Infocom. We've seen all these shows cancelled over the last 12, 15 months. I think the last show that we had was ISE in Amsterdam in last year.
19,
yeah. And even
20,
that, I mean,
20.
like LG pulled out, a number of companies pulled out because they didn't think it was safe and whatever. What's the future of these shows in your opinion? Like, are they going to survive? Will they come back to normal? Will we see different formats? And also what's Midwich's approach to all this?
So the current corporate take is that while the pandemic is still declared a pandemic and the vaccine is not widely distributed yet, our current corporate policy, if you like, is that we won't put our people at risk by having them attend trade shows or any show or any sort of event where we don't control, or we can't control, the COVID protocols or their safety.
Right.
So that has meant that we won't attend ISE. We haven't done Infocom. We pulled out of ISE last year at the last minute. We actually had two people on the plane heading over when we finally pulled the pin. We've got that close. and that was a major investment for us.
Yeah.
Not just here, but certainly in the UK and in Europe. And that's purely just to make sure that we keep our people safe. If something changes or someone can prove otherwise, then we will review it. And currently we have a mandate to review it on the 1st of October, which unfortunately means that Integrate does fall into that, and we won't be attending Integrate.
Okay.
That doesn't mean though we won't be supporting industry. And one of the things I think as one of the leading players or people or companies in the AV industry, we need to support the industry. So we still will maintain our sponsorships. We still will maintain our connections. We will still do everything we can to help and assist the industry to prosper. We physically just can't do it because of the current situation.
So what does that look like from a Midwich point of view? I mean, are you going to, because the position that you're in and you, your organisation distributes and supports many products, are you going to host your own events?
Yeah, so we do that anyway. We do that anyway because each of our offices, Sydney, Melbourne, Brisbane, Singapore, New Zealand, we have showroom facilities and we can demonstrate most of our products. We do training courses both online and now in situ with COVID policies being released a bit, depending on the situation, depending on the protocol, the COVID protocol. We will be doing our own partner summit again this year, which I think both of you have attended in the past, which is it's an invitation only, but we're going to open it up a little bit. It'll probably be towards the end of the year. We haven't confirmed the dates yet, probably October, November, and it'll probably be in New South Wales somewhere. New South Wales have been the most responsive and the most economically, or most focused on the economy and balance of COVID in terms of not closing borders and outbreaks and trying to manage what they can. So we'll probably have it in New South Wales, but it's something we can control. We can do the COVID protocols. We'll probably have to limit it to a certain amount of people. And then on the back of that, instead of doing one day, which we normally do, we'll probably do a second day. And on the second day, we'll have a mini trade show.
Okay.
So the vendors can come and, sorry?
In the past, those summits, they haven't been, you haven't had product on display. Like it wasn't like a mini integrated.
And the first half won't be still. The first half is about the customer and about the market and about some of the things changing. Economic report will still be there. How we see the future will be there. The panel discussion on the things that affect our industry will still be there. Stage 2 will be added, which is what we haven't done in the past, and have a small mini trade show on site with our major vendors or all our vendors that can participate.
I must say, I really enjoyed that format that you've put out over the last couple of years, because it wasn't all about technology or it wasn't all about AV. You know, you would have someone come in from a bank, for example, and talk about the economy, and then you'd have like a guest speaker. I remember in Melbourne, you had Kevin Sheedy up there. He was amazing. Like he was
coaching. Coaching people.
That's right. You know, write this down. Right? Remember that?
Yeah, we've had an accountant who's really about buying and selling businesses and how he views businesses. The whole idea is about the industry and it's not about speeds and feeds. Yeah. And you'll actually notice it's very brand agnostic too. It's not sponsored by Sony, although we did introduce Phil Gort when he first turned up to Australia. We gave him 5 minutes. Yeah. But that's not what it's about the industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Speaking of the industry, one of the forums was certainly about it ended up being very focused on the skills shortage into the AV industry. What's your and even Pete, question for you, what do you see as is that still a very real challenge? I mean, for us hiring right now, I'm pretty lucky. I've got some good key people, and they're quite well skilled. But I've had a fair challenge in years gone by trying to find good skill.
So yes, it is. It is a challenge. I don't think it's so much of a challenge went quiet probably in COVID times, because there has been some redundancies, there has been some jobs lost, there has been some downtime. if you look at the
There's
market
a hell of
figures,
a lot of roadies and that sort of stuff that, live events, and they were up for grabs.
They're looking for a job.
Yeah. And one of our new people is actually from that industry. But the reality is it's still there in the background. It hasn't gone away. The market might have dipped 20% last year in real terms of sell-out dollars. They're forecasting it might actually come back up at 29%.
Wow.
So we've still got
that's
growth.
the AV market.
That's the commercial AV market.
Wow.
Particularly around display. And that's based on Futuresource. We haven't seen the first quarter numbers yet, but that was based on 220 numbers. The 221 Futuresource first quarter numbers are due out end of this month. But it'll be interesting to see. But that means that the problem hasn't gone away. We still have a shortage. And for those that have known me for a while will know this is one of my pet subjects. Even when I was back in the day working with KLM and with the program team, we actually employed some AV apprentices because Brisbane TAFE did an entertainment and technology second and third year focus of part of the electrical trade. No one else has done it. And AVIXA certainly, they do their CTS and they do bits and pieces. But, they're on the right track with Benny Caswell doing the tech team out of schools, that early entry, ground root stuff. We need to do more of it. We need to, as a group, we still need to lobby and get that going.
Well, we're certainly going to see if we're going to go to 29%, all we're going to see is the issue amplified, really, aren't we?
Yep.
And I know Mark and I have spoken about this before, and I agree that with what Benny was doing and bringing those young people through was great. But it needs to be broader than just that. It needs to be broader than just, like theater lighting and audio and stuff. Like it needs to be also the hands-on stuff, rather than just the operation side of things. As I said, not saying that that's not important, but how can we broaden that? And I was going to say, the biggest problem is there is no real pathway for these young people coming through. You mentioned, Michael, that, Brisbane TAFE had some form of pathway or some form of training for apprentices. But it's such a great industry. It's such a great opportunity for young people to get in there, learn some skills and earn decent money, because there is a shortage of these people. So, prove your worth and your pay goes up. But it's like somebody's got to do something, really. It's like to really have formal training that they can get people into our industry.
Well, we actually, out of that forum we actually come up with, I think it was about 30 roles across 7 or 8 of the large integrators said, we'll take 4, we'll take 10, we'll take 6 as an outcome. But we couldn't get the TAFE colleges because they were to actually run the course. They wanted 100 students over 3 states. So there is that desire there. I think there is certainly the appetite. There certainly is. I think the industry will do it, but it just probably needs someone. I think we're all hoping AVIXA would do that, if we could say that. But I don't think they are the right body. They're obviously a large global association. It's probably up to us here, or a body here, to actually drive that.
But the other part is, do we actually have the trainers that could train it, that could teach it?
I think we could.
Yeah.
I think we could. I think it's really just the buy-in from the industry to actually invest in it.
Like, you probably kind of take the CTS stuff
Nika?
and the AVIXA stuff, and then run it through TAFE. It'd be a whole lot better than
the one that I actually seen the curriculum that Brisbane had, and it's quite good. So it's the electrical concepts in year 1, and then year 2 and 3 is just on amplifiers and speakers and audio and display and resolution and it's all about entertainment technology, as they put it. Yeah. But it was all fun. And young Brad, who was with us back then, who's now actually the head of leading technology with them, he actually come through the whole system and was doing practical 4 days a week on the tools. Perfect.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's right. Well,
and even a cert 4 course or a uni course, where people can study the academia side of it, or the theory side.
Yeah.
And instead of coming out as an engineer, they can come out as a technician.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yes, there is a shortage, and it will get worse.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's not. Yeah, we've got to do something basically now, haven't we, to stand up and be counted.
Exactly. So what, Michael, I mean, have you got any new products that you can talk about that you're bringing on board, or some new technology that maybe some of the manufacturers that you deal with are bringing out that excites you moving forward?
Yeah, so probably there's always something going on. There's always new brands going on. There's always changes.
Yeah.
There's some interesting changes in remote back to the office transition that I'm keen to watch how that unfolds over the next 6 to 9 to 12 months. So I think we'll see some things we weren't expecting in terms of people's behaviour and how they adopt, particularly the hybrid, where where at the moment there's the 3 of us and we're all equal, we're all equally cropped, right? But when I come back to the office, I'm going to have 7 people in the office around a table, and I'm going to still be at home. What's going to happen? So I'll be interested to see how that happens, but we don't have technology to answer that yet. But we are, we're thinking about open offices more, because the 1.5, instead of having 100 people on a floor plate, you might have 50. So you won't have that noise pollution. You won't, people wear headsets. So how do we inject pink noise, or how do we create that noise pollution to still create privacy or still create isolation in conversation? So that's interesting. And the other thing we're seeing is, even though AV over IP, and we talked about networks before, hasn't really taken off, and there's still a lot of HD-based T around, things like NDI and the development of technology like NDI are quite interesting.
I want to go back to that point you made about transitioning back to the office. I recently did a presentation and copped a bit of stick about a concept that I came up with, because what I was saying was that I believe that when people go back to the office, we are so used to, like we are now, it's sitting or standing in front of our computers, we're framed. Our heads are framed, and so there's more people. Everyone's framed. We're not in the same room like we used to be, and the camera was viewing the whole room. So when we come back to the office, will there be an expectation, or has our behavior changed in such a way where we're not going to use a meeting space to jump on a call? We're just going to sit at our desk and take the call. So I'm really interested in, from a sort of a learnt behavior point of view, how does the workplace now change? Are we going to have less meeting spaces as a result? But where I got a little bit ridiculed was I came up with this idea or concept of, okay, like exactly what you just said before, right? We can control the digital audio. We can wear headphones. We can have a microphone. What we can't control is the analog audio, our voices within an open plan workspace. And the concept was this acoustic air curtain. So it didn't have any visual impacts, but it was able to actually, between each desk in an open workplace, have this acoustic air curtain, so people can have conversations like we're having now and not disturb the people around them. And then there was all these comments in the chat, it was like the cone of silence and blah, blah, blah. And like, I'm like,
you just picture this. It comes down when you want to have a private phone call.
Oh, chief.
But surely, surely, like there is technology or someone out there that can create something like this to allow us work in this new way.
Yeah,
it'll be interesting I think that needs to be looked at, because it's going to happen. I think it's going to happen.
Look, Pete, I think there'll be an expectation for you to start wearing pants. That'll be a good start. But also, I think there'll also be, there's a lot more, like there's a company just uptown here, and they're really focused. They're an acoustics company, right? So They're focused around phone booths effectively and things like that. I think they'll certainly come to light. I mean, they're already coming to light into co-working spaces. Randomly there's a co-working space down the road and they have these phone booths, privacy booths, and you go into one of them, you can hear the person on the call next door, even better. But they haven't quite executed that well. But I think there's certainly the acoustic companies that will have those roll in, bang.
But I know just from my experience here, like I've been coming in every day. I'm on this call in my office, and then the owner of the business sits in the office next to me. Now, go back 18 months ago, if we were getting on a call together, we would go to the boardroom and we'd sit in the boardroom together and we'd be on that call. We don't do that anymore. We're sitting in adjacent offices on the same call in front of our computers talking to people, because that's just that learnt behavior because of what's happened.
And we had an all-staff meeting yesterday, just a quick we have a monthly catch-up, which was born out of COVID actually. Yep. We started trying to communicate faster, better, and more broadly and more relaxed about just open conversation. But even yesterday we had our team in Blonde Robot in Melbourne, probably a half a dozen in their meeting space, and I think everybody else, maybe myself and David, were at their desktop.
Mm-hmm. And we had a client that came back earlier than most in New York, and everyone had been working remotely, and there were 3 people going into the office regularly, and they would go into the boardroom and be on this call. And the first time that happened, the first day that they did that, the comments were from the people at the far end, but you're so far away. And we had an auto framing camera, like it wasn't as if the camera was zoomed out or anything. It was zoomed in on the 3 people in the room, but the feedback was, you're too far away, because you were so used to having everyone's head framed individually on the screen.
Well, it's interesting because I think the etiquette is different at your desktop than it is in a meeting room. Mm-hmm. So I will still mention something to David, but I didn't mute my microphone. Now, if I was there, I would be on mute normally. And you're right, the distance was an issue. There was probably 2 people in that room. I couldn't tell in the Melbourne board who was in that, because they were out the back of the room. Yep. And the other thing I noticed is that when I had everybody up on the screen, anybody that was at the desktop and framed similar to what we're framed, if they did, I could see they wanted to say something. So I'd stop and say, you want to say something, Peter? Yeah. I couldn't see that in a meeting space.
Yes. Yep.
Mm. Yeah, so it's interesting. I think, I don't know what it really means, but the dynamic will certainly change and we need to be aware of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, got to wonder if those auto framing cameras could give you a separate feed for each head.
Well, there was trials for it. I remember the 360 camera and the huddle. Was the one with was a triangular. So they've tried different ways to do it.
Mm.
Yeah, well, Polycom, I think, came out with the technology, didn't they? Or Microsoft, one of the two, and they had that 360-degree camera on the desk, and to try and make everyone. Yeah. So, but never really kind of took off, which is a little.
Maybe it will now.
Yeah.
Speaking of Polycom, that's a great segue, Pete. I'm glad you said that.
Sorry, Mark. Let's think about the QR code.
QR. Has anyone seen my business?
It'll never take off. It was dead, and then it come alive. So maybe the 360 camera will.
Look. Hold that thought. Oh, I can't find it. My business card, right, is a QR code. On one side, it's got "G'day, I'm Mark," just in case and it's really big because I want to make sure I'm known. And then on the other side, it's just got a QR code. That's it, right? I got smashed for it. Absolutely smashed. And I mean, the IT guys are going, "This is fantastic. Scan, bang, and all my details just scan straight in your phone." But you give it to a builder or a project manager on site, and they're going, "What the hell's this thing? Oh, don't give me that," because they're probably still on their Nokia 3210. However, now even my project manager said to me, he said, "Your business cards they've come back with a vengeance. Like, everyone knows what a QR code is now, and everyone's got to use it." I'm still seeing people plead ignorance when walking into a venue, going, what's this? What, you mean I've got a scan? Mate, you're sitting there going, mate, have you been living under a rock for the last 12 months? You've got a scan to go into anywhere. But, bang, scan, they go, oh, great, cool, bang, done. Like, QR codes are definitely back with vending.
I didn't mean to digress, but yeah.
Sorry.
have you seen the new business cards that are actually like they're a metal card, like a credit card, and they've got all that information on it, and then you just tap it on their phone, and the same thing, it transfers the information.
It's bringing back remember the old bump app? You just bumped your two phones together and transferred your details. It's like next level. Anyway, we've digressed from the original segue. The segue was Poly. Poly, right? Hardware as a service.
It's a bundle. It's a bundle of a service, including the hardware. It's a finance package. Think of a printer. No one buys a printer. People buy it per page from a Ricoh or from a Ethan or whoever. So we're trying to package bundles into hardware as a service, and we want to then, because it's going to be a 3 or 5 year term of finance, we're trying to also package in the extended warranty and the help desk or whatever else you might need in that 5 years. The reason we're doing it is because we believe after COVID, we've got a massive debt to pay back. The economy won't be as strong as everyone thinks. We think working capital and capital expenditure by the universities, by the education, by the government, by the corporate market will be finite, it will be limited. So we're introducing another way, which is an OPEX. So it's really nothing new. It's just packaged. It's a packaged bundle. So instead of having to buy a screen, a camera, a microphone, and a whatever, you buy it including the service wrap or including the support and the extended warranties. So if you're going to enter a deal for $40 a month for the next 5 years, you know it's actually covered for the next 5 years.
And do you own it? Does the client own it at the end of that period, or is it, is it just kind of like almost like a rental? Because I know, like with Tesla,
it is a rental. It's a rental, Pete. So they can buy it at the end for $1,
right? But
no, the asset is owned by the finance company or by the integrator or by us, depending who does the deal and how the deal's done.
Yeah, and that's how Tesla does their financing. I mean, you could get a loan for the whole amount, or they have this lease option, but you don't own it at the end of that lease. So I think it's a 36-month lease, and you're basically just renting the vehicle over that period.
Yeah. Again, it's just a productization, if you like.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've put a bundle together. You can buy that bundle if you want outright. But if you also if you don't have the capex, you can then have the option to take it over a 3 or 5 year rental term.
And look, we're at the end of JobKeeper now, and it'll be interesting to see how the next 3 months, next 90 days, sort of really play out, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Yep.
I mean that, Pete. I don't know if you're aware that finished on March 30th.
Okay.
First.
No more handouts.
Yeah. No more handouts. Anyone who's has got to stand on their own 2 feet, which will be interesting to see because look, I heard someone recently selling. It was actually a builder. It wasn't in the AV industry, but we learn a lot from every other industries. But they were selling a job with free labour, right? They weren't charging labour on these jobs, so of course they got so much work.
Yeah.
Because they were 30% cheaper than everybody else. They got heaps and heaps of work, and now I'm sitting there going, well, now you got to pay people, and they're just using JobKeeper as the way to pay the staff.
Yeah.
And now I'm going, okay, well, you've screwed the market, number one.
Yeah.
And number two, now you've probably screwed yourself because you've backed all this work up, and now you've actually got to pay for it. So
you actually pay people for it.
Yeah. So it'll certainly be interesting to see, and we'll see some even in the AV industry. Hopefully, we don't I don't ever wish going broke and all that and get that sort of stress on anybody. I just don't think it's great for.
Well, there's certainly a few that won't come back.
Yeah, it's sad to see, but.
Yeah, well, even by their own decision, I know a couple that have bought a hotel and just doing a motor in. A couple have taken on lawn mowing franchises, far less stressful, and just out.
Yeah. Or some certainly pocketed a whole lot of money in the JobKeeper and then just went, guilt-free
Out of
at
here.
the end of at the end of March, going, all right, that's it. We've got some money. We're going into something else, and guilt-free and sort of sitting on there going, we're
But
good.
thankfully, we are starting
COVID.
to see a bit more positivity in the market now.
Yeah.
We're certainly seeing it from our point of view in terms of pipeline and projects coming back online, inquiry rate, a fair few green shoots are starting to appear now, which is good to see.
Yeah, I think there's still opportunity for people to improve. The ones that have sort of invested a lot in their marketing and through that COVID time have seemed to be sprouting pretty well now. So yeah, and your niche and you go at the end of when all's said and done, we're still here, sort of thing. So to see how that plays out. You agree with that, Michael? You got a funny look on your face.
No, I do agree with it. I just with the amount of uncertainty we've had for the last 12, 15 months, there's still it's still a balancing act. It's still a bit of uncertainty. But
yeah, 100%.
It's looking better.
Yep. Well, look, I think we might wrap this up, Pete. It's been awesome to have you on the Tech Effect, Michael.
Interesting conversation. It wasn't where I thought we were going, but anyway, it was interesting.
Oh, look, we never know really
we don't know
where
we're going with these conversations. Like, how are you going to know where we're going?
Look, I stand. I think Michael would agree with me. It's been great to have you on because you're not living in MD world right up there with the fairies. You're always you can always get hold of you and have a chat with you. You've come through the ranks of the world of integrator, and you know what it's like on the ground. So you've got a very humble approach to certainly how our industry operates. So certainly thank you.
But also, he's very much and I'm not a term that they don't know over here is pissing in your pocket, but
Piss away, Pete.
Piss away.
No, but I've always admired your out of the box thinking. I mean, we've had many conversations about different aspects of the industry and opportunities and things like that. And I think that's what it takes. You can't, businesses who just sit back, sit on their hands and think that everything's going to be fine. You can't. You've got to keep reinventing yourself all the time. You've got to be agile. You've got to look for improvements all the time and think outside the box. And I believe you've always done that, whether it's in the way that you conduct business, the products that you sell, the events that you put on, all those kinds of things, like the markets that you want to get into. Obviously, you got into Singapore and all that kind of stuff. And it's so refreshing because I think complacency is the biggest killer. I've been in the industry for a while and I've seen companies get complacent and they just go downhill. You can't get complacent. You've got to always be reinventing yourself.
If you're not improving, you must be going backwards.
You're going backwards.
It's always been a bit of a philosophy.
Yeah. Always going forward or you're going backwards. One of the
And
two.
we all want to. We all need to find what gets us out of bed every morning. And it's not profit. It's not salary. That's the short-term thing. It's really about what you can do for the industry and what you get back out of the industry, the self-fulfillment, which I've really enjoyed this industry for 30 years. So
yeah, nice
I
one.
appreciate the comments. Thank you, gents.
Yeah, nice one. All right, look, thanks again, Michael. And we're going to say goodbye on the Tech Effect. You can see us on YouTube, LinkedIn for the Kiwis. Where else can you see us? On Facebook and we're in your face everywhere. But you can also hear us if you want to.
Podcasts.
Podcast.
If you can't watch us or you can't stand to watch us, which is understandable, you can listen to us. You could be driving, you could be jogging, you could be on the train, wherever.
We're going to infiltrate your life whether you like it or not. So jump on, give us a like, give us a shout out, and we look forward to seeing you all guys very soon. Thanks again, Pete.
No worries. Thanks, Mark, and big thank you once again to Michael.
For sure. See you guys.
Take care.
See ya. Bye.